the sheriffs only report to the voters. The people are our only supervisors. I don't report to the president, to the governor, to the mayor, to the town manager, to the board of supervisors, to the county commissioners. Nobody is my supervisor except the people. And that's why we're a constitutional republic. I'm worried about the coronavirus, but I'm scared to death of the destruction of America that we're all witnessing right before our eyes. We're willing participants, and we're going along with this, and we should not be.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have a very special guest on the line. It's Sheriff Richard Mack. He's the founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And guys, for those who don't know, Sheriff Mack went all the way to the Supreme Court back in the late 90s fighting the Brady Bill, and the NRA financed his lawsuit, which he won. Now, had he not done that, we would not have what's left of our Second Amendment today. Sheriff Mack, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. I know what you're trying to do here in the face of this pandemic is wake up sheriffs across the country. And the good news is we are seeing bright spots around the country. Here's a news item from Eastern Washington where the sheriff says he won't enforce stay-at-home orders. We've got a sheriff in Racine County, Wisconsin, saying the exact same thing. What is your organization trying to do to make sure that this goes coast to coast?
We're trying to make sure that there's not just little drabs doing that anymore. We want a majority of the sheriffs doing it. We can actually win. We can win this whole thing. We can take our Constitution back. We can take our liberty back tomorrow. Even if we just had a third of the sheriffs in this country doing it, that would be 1,000. I'll even go as low as a fourth. 700 or 800 sheriffs doing this, and we win. Because that's too many to control. The feds won't be able to stop it. The governors won't be able to stop it. The mayors won't be able to stop it. Any dictator, any self-appointed dictator in America today will not be able to stop them. And the wonderful thing about it is your sheriff doesn't answer to any of them. In my Supreme Court case, that's what it was all about. I said that the federal government could not tell me what to do, could not tell any sheriff what to do, could not tell any state employee what to do. They cannot dictate to the governors, to the state legislatures, and they certainly cannot dictate to the sheriffs. And I'm so proud of that decision that actually did it. And not only that, let me tell you honestly, the decision written by Justice Scalia went much further than I ever imagined, than I ever dreamed. And I can share some of that with you as we go throughout the interview.
Yeah, well, please do that now because I have a tendency to just roll on and I might forget to bring that back up.
Well, one of the first ones is this, and I have a little booklet that I put together called The Victory for State Sovereignty, and it's a review of the case. Now, you can look up the case. There were two of us that actually went on this. I was the one who started the entire lawsuit from a small town in southeast Arizona, Safford, Arizona. That's where I grew up. It's Graham County, like Graham cracker. And it's a small farming community. I loved living there. My dad had us live there while he was an FBI agent. He didn't move around the country. He wanted us to stay there and live in this good place. So I'm always grateful to him for that. But this lawsuit went crazy. And when I tell people that, it's crazy. So look it up. It would be the Mack Printz, Printz. But if you just Google Mack versus U.S., you'll find it. If you Google Printz versus U.S., you'll find it. Cornell University did the best review of it. And I took their review and I made this little booklet, VSS, Victory for State Sovereignty. It costs like $2 or $3. You can get like 5 of them for $10 on our website at cspoa.org. And I recommend that people get dozens of these and hand them out to public officials and say, see, we told you the federal government doesn't have the authority to do all the things they're doing. And it doesn't matter who the president is. I don't care if it's George Washington himself. He cannot tell the states what to do. Obama couldn't tell the states what to do. He tried over and over. The administration I sued was Bill Clinton. So you could literally say, I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it. And so this is the one quote I find absolutely astonishing and worth its weight in gold. When it comes to the freedom movement, if I told you that today we had a lawsuit against the federal government that they can't shut us down, or that we had a lawsuit against a governor or a certain state or mayor and saying that they can't shut us down, this is what Scalia wrote in the Mack Prince case, quote, "But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions." Now, you would think that would be enough right there, wouldn't you, Sean?
Yeah.
The Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. In other words, shutting down the country because it's for our own good, that doesn't fly. There is no provision in any state constitution or in the federal constitution or in any statute or any principle of government that we adhere to or that the founding fathers established that allows government to create a dictatorship, destroy the Constitution, destroy liberty, and completely control our lives. There's nothing of that's allowed, not even close. But let me go on. After it says, "But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions," he says, "It divides power among sovereigns," and that's us, "among sovereigns, and among branches of government, so that we may resist the temptation." Get that? So that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. End quote.
Amen.
Can you imagine a Supreme Court decision that actually talks about the crisis of the day, that does not support the mantra of the Obama administration that never let a good crisis go to waste? And he certainly wasn't the only one. FDR did it. A lot of them did it. But it's when people are afraid that they will accept almost anything. And that's what we're seeing today.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And as I've been saying, it makes absolutely zero sense to destroy the economy on the back of this thing, all in the name of protecting us. How does that make any sense? People are jobless, hungry, standing in bread lines, their business is destroyed, but they're safe from a virus. None of this makes sense. And what I'd like you to help us understand is when we see tyrannical governors like the one in Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, hand down these insane executive orders telling people they can't even travel from house to house to visit people. They can't see their friends. They can't go visit grandma. How is it that that is being obeyed by people? Constitutionally speaking, it's null and void. Is that correct? How can she possibly enforce this? And why are so many of these cops willing to play the role of authoritarian enforcers? That's the part that really troubles me.
Well, the CSPOA is trying to counter that, and we've been doing this for 10 years because I was really alarmed by how many cops will just do what they're told. And yet, what is their oath of office? They swore an oath of allegiance to the Constitution, thus attempting the attempt by the founding fathers to perpetuate liberty throughout generations in America. It's really scary that our cops and some sheriffs are so willing to go along. And maybe it's because of money, because the governor holds the purse strings. Maybe it's because they want to get all these federal grants, or they're afraid of their retirement, or they want to make sure that they don't lose their jobs. Well, I don't really care what the excuses are. Those are excuses, and they don't amount to anything when it comes down to what's really important. And there's two facets of this. It's the economy and it's my liberty. And they do go hand in hand, because the reason that America became the most prosperous and powerful country in world history is because we were free to do so. The American people, after the Revolutionary War, that's right about time the Industrial Revolution hit, because people were free to expand their horizons, to make businesses happen, to increase trade throughout the world. And trade is the tide that lifts all boats, and it has. And trade is the one thing that makes the pizza pie, that makes the pie bigger for everybody. And so liberty and the economy go hand in hand, but you're absolutely correct. How is it that you can pretend that you're taking care of me when you're destroying my liberty and my business and everything I've worked for my entire life. You destroy my pursuit of happiness and you're pretending to take care of me? And no, that doesn't fly. So we just need people that can see through that. And we're hoping at the CSPOA, we're hoping that we can train these sheriffs and deprogram the peace officers of this country so that the brainwashing that they've had and the programming that they've had will be undone by our educational process. And it's a big job. We've got a lot to do. And why do we focus mostly on sheriffs? Well, sheriffs only report to the American people. The sheriffs only report to the voters. The people are our only supervisors. I don't report to the president, to the governor, to the mayor, to the town manager, to the board of supervisors, to the county commissioners. Nobody is my supervisor except the people. And that's why we're a constitutional republic, where the people choose their public servants, not other bureaucrats and not a king and not some oligarchy.
Is it a requirement to be a current or former law enforcement officer to become a member of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association? Because we need people to sign up and we need people to support you.
Yeah, that's very true. And in fact, this is a people-oriented organization, primarily for what I just told you. The supervisors for the sheriffs in this country, and for that matter, all law enforcement, they're all supposed to work for the people. But quite frankly, the sheriff is the one that works for them directly. And yes, how would we do this if the supervisors, the people, aren't involved? In fact, it will not work. We've already seen the great success that we've had with sheriffs changing and coming to our seminars and standing for liberty. It's because they have a relationship with their people, and those people have contacted their sheriffs and asked them, are you a constitutional sheriff? Will you keep your oath? Will you protect me from other government that are bullying me, government that are violating my rights? And right now, how many governors are violating the God-given rights of every individual in their counties? And people are starting to protest, people are starting to wake up, and just as you alluded to earlier, sheriffs from all across the country are starting to stand. They can't do that without you. And so to answer your question succinctly, yes, all people can join. Doesn't matter what you are, where you've been, what you're retired from, or what job you have right now. We need you. You must be on board with this, or it's not going to work. And so you just join at CSPOA. You can make a monthly donation. You can buy our books. You can become a member. A yearly member is only $50. So what is that? Like $3.75, $4 a month. And so we do have people that have become life members at $500, $800, $1,000. They want to help this movement. You can just make a donation. You don't even have to become a member. But it's because of you that this will work. So look down at your hands. You'll see the solution. It's in your hands. It's up to you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to leave the link below, guys. That's cspoa.org. Let's circle back. So your very interesting, divinely inspired life brought you in touch with Supreme Court Justice Scalia. May he rest in peace. If we look back at those leaked Podesta emails, there's a few in particular that call into question what actually happened to the good judge that night, the night of his death. I wish that white hats would look into that. I'd like to see the arrests made of a lot of these deep state criminals. We keep hearing that the white hats are in control, and yet our Constitution is being burned down on the back of this pandemic. Now, Scalia said, quote, "The Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns." We are sovereign. Correct? How is it that the American people have been so misled into believing that they need to be governed by a government that tells them, you can't go to your job. In fact, not only can't you go to work, we're closing down. We're ordering that your business be closed down for 30 days. Maybe we'll extend it for another 30 days. Maybe we'll extend it until July. Where does this end for we the people if we don't take our own power back?
Well, we're saying it ends now, and even with that now, we're saying, okay, we'll give it to what Trump said, April 30th. So May 1st, we're reopening. And some states have already announced that they will, and that people can start reopening their restaurants and bars and other businesses. And the right to travel, of course, will be reopened. You know, I drove around yesterday, and boy, there's a lot more people out there on the roads than just 2 weeks ago. I go somewhere every day. I do not lock myself in my house, and I'm all for voluntary procedures to keep each other safe. I wear a mask most of the time when I'm in any store. The only time I think is I forgot it once. I keep a hand sanitizer. Where's my hand? Oh, here it is. Okay. All my family, and I also teach school, and I give these away to my kids at school and my grandkids. And these little Bath and Body Works, really good. And we keep those handy everywhere I go. I have that. I use it probably 10 times a day. The one I showed you is mostly empty. But I'm all for that. But don't force me. And Jefferson even said that. He said, in our constitutional republic, we can persuade and we can reason with the people, but we cannot force them. And so wherever these leaders got this idea, I have no idea. I guess maybe from Hitler or Stalin. I don't know where they get it, but it's un-American. It's the antithesis of our Constitution. And furthermore, this was a system. Our Constitution was a system to establish and create self-government. That means exactly what it says. It means I govern myself. And as long as I'm not hurting anyone else, that's what this country is all about. And government's only duty is to step in when I go too far and I create some other victim, or I'm threatening to create a victim. I'll even let them step in there. And I did. I spent 20 years in law enforcement. But I don't believe in forcing people into a cocoon of behavior because some government official came up with this wild idea or had a nightmare last night. And this is what worries me, that they could create a crisis anytime they want to completely control us. And that looks like it happens and has happened. And so the next one, this is what really, really has me worried. I'm worried about the coronavirus, but I'm scared to death of the destruction of America that we're all witnessing right before our eyes, and we're willing participants, and we're going along with this, and we should not be. And so that's where we the people come in. Can you imagine that you will have civil disobedience and that you will protest this, and your sheriff and his deputies and other police officers and peace officers and other public servants are standing right there next to you?
You know, as a police officer, I'm compelled to make this video. I've been in law enforcement for 10 years, and I'm speaking to my peers, other fellow officers, people in any kind of law enforcement position. I've seen officers nationwide enforcing tyrannical orders against the people. And I'm hoping it's the minority of officers, but I'm not sure anymore, because every time I turn on the television, every time I look to the internet, I'm seeing people arrested or cited for going to church, for traveling on the roadways, for going surfing, opening their businesses, going to the park with their families, or doing nails out of their own house, using their own house as a place of business, and having undercover agents go there and arrest them and charge them with what? With a crime? I don't know what crime people are committing by doing nails in their own house, but we're seeing this more and more and more, and we need to start looking at ourselves as officers and thinking, is what I'm doing right? Now, I want to remind you that regardless of where you stand on the coronavirus, we don't have the authority to do those things to people just because a mayor or a governor tells you otherwise. I don't care if it's your sergeant or your chief of police. We don't get to violate people's constitutional rights because somebody in our chain of command tells us otherwise. It's not how this country works. It's contradictory to everything that our country stands for. And this is what I'm seeing. First Amendment rights, telling people they can't go to church, freedom of religion, okay? Telling people they can't protest, freedom of assembly. Fourth Amendment violations, illegal traffic stops to check for papers. What are you, the Gestapo? Is this 1930s Nazi Germany? You don't get to stop people unless you have reasonable suspicion or probable cause that they have committed a crime. And I know people that have personally been stopped saying, we want to see papers showing that you're essential. You know, you don't get to just say, well, I'm doing this because I was told to do so, or I'm following orders, or I need to keep this job. Guess what? I need to keep this job more than anybody. I have 3 young children. I have 2 houses. Like, I have the same sob story that the rest of you guys have. But my personal choices and my living arrangements, no matter what they are, don't allow me to trample on people's rights. And I don't understand why that concept is so hard for people to understand.
What about police departments that do want to enforce this unconstitutional stuff? So if, say, in mass in a small town, everybody opens up their businesses on May 1st, but then the cops roll in and they have the rule of force through guns and they order everybody to close. Then do we have a standoff between sheriffs and cops? How does that play out?
Well, we already have a business out here in Arizona that is reopened. It's a fitness spa, fitness center. And I don't even remember the name of it, but he was on the radio and he stayed anonymous, but he did give the name of his business. So, it was like Anytime Fitness or something like that. It was one of those. And he says, I didn't get the money. The money ran out that the government was offering. I didn't really want it in the first place, but it was the only thing that would keep me alive and keep my business going. He says, I didn't get any of it. So now I either lose my business forever or I reopen my doors. He says, we're being very careful. We're wiping everybody down. All the employees wipe everything down, whether the customers do or not. We have hand sanitizer around for everybody. We try to keep everybody apart as best we can, but we're reopened. And he said, it's my life business. It's my livelihood. It's either that or take out bankruptcy. He already got threatened with arrest. And some cop came by his business and saw that it was open. And we're ready to stand with him and for him. In fact, I'm trying to find out his name and which location he's in, so we can stand for that and stand for him and his right to do this. We're trying to train the sheriffs in this country to do just that. We're also trying to train the police departments and all patrol officers that they have no obligation to go along with tyrannical laws. In fact, the enforcement of stupid laws is in fact the essence of tyranny. And so if we understand that such laws, and they're not even laws, no legislature has passed any of these. They're just executive orders. And they have no teeth behind them unless you get stupid police officers that enforce them blindly. And that's where we have really gone wrong. And that's why we really need all of your listeners to get on board with us, because we have such a job to do from Hawaii to Bangor, Maine, and from Juneau, Alaska to Miami, Florida. We have so many different jurisdictions that we got to take this message to. There's just so much we can do online and with podcasts and email blasts and whatnot. And we just don't know who's reading them. We do have a way to trace if somebody opened our emails, and we're sending these out to sheriffs all over the country. And we've got some pretty good responses, but we've got to be pounding the pavement. We've got to go visit sheriffs. And that's exactly why we need each one of you involved. Go talk to your sheriff. Ask them on May 1st, if my brother opens his business, what are you going to do to him? What if somebody else? What if some city officer comes around? That's why these trained sheriffs and even we have some chiefs of police that are all for this and what we're doing. They've been to our seminars. They've been speakers at some of our conferences. They've all got to understand that they have to train other people that weren't there. And there might be some people in law enforcement that have never heard of this. Most of them don't even know what sovereign means. Most of them don't even remember that they took an oath of office. Some of them have never read the Constitution. In fact, I hate to say this, most of them have not ever read the Constitution. So how are you going to keep your oath to uphold and defend a document you have never read.
Right.
So you can see the work that we have to do. It's monstrous. It's humongous. But we're chipping away at it. We've been doing this for 10 years. And every one of those sheriffs you mentioned, there's another dozen or so or more in each place. Washington has about a dozen sheriffs that are on board with defending the Second Amendment and the Constitution. Florida has some. Texas has quite a few. Even California has some. New York has some. Sheriff Michael Capriati in New York is one of our best members. And so this is all over. Don't lose hope. You're not going to get the sheriff in San Francisco or Los Angeles or Dallas or New York City. You're not going to get them. The Chicago sheriff, you're not going to get him. But right outside Chicago, you are. So you might have to move. Maybe we can get some of these big city Democrat sheriffs to get educated. But speaking of Democrat and Republican sheriffs, New Mexico has 29 out of 33 sheriffs, both Democrats and Republicans alike, that are standing unitedly against their governor on the Second Amendment. Some of them are getting involved now in this. And so there's a lot of hope here, because this is a peaceful process. Like I said, if the sheriff's there standing with you, this is going to remain peaceful. And I abhor violence. I've never abdicated violence. We do not support that. But we do support the effective return to liberty in America. And that's where we're supposed to be. And we're only trying to take back what was rightfully ours when we were born. These are our natural rights. And so I spend every day on this. I'm also a school teacher. And man, I would love to bring in enough money to where I could stop teaching and I do this full time. I used to do it full time, but it waned and the donations left and I had to find a job. So regardless of where the good Lord puts me on this, I'm willing to work 2 jobs full time to make all this happen. And that's basically what I'm doing. I do 2 or 3 radio shows every day. I'm talking on the phone with sheriffs. I'm emailing sheriffs. I'm talking with people across the country to help them do it in their communities. And even a lady in Kauai, I hope she invites me out there as soon as the plane will take me to Hawaii again. But I love Kauai. I've been there once. And I don't care where it is, but this lady, her name's Adine, in Hawaii, she sees the necessity of this. And they don't even have elected sheriffs there, but they do have peace officers and they do have chiefs of police. And she wants to get a relationship with them, and she wants us to make this happen. She's joining the CSPOA. And folks, we literally need thousands of you to do that same thing. If you don't, you know what? You pretty much get what you pay for.
Yeah, I'll leave the link below, guys. Again, it's cspoa.org. You do not have to be a sheriff or a police officer to join. So click the link down below. Sheriff Richard Mack could really use your support. All right, let me ask you this. Have you ever spoken to Jesse Ventura?
You know, I called him once. I think it was back. I think he was still governor. And our relationship didn't pick up from there. I really wish it had, because he really knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he sure does. And I mentioned this in a video or an interview not too long ago. And it came to mind because of the tyrant we see over there in Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh, my gosh.
And the one in Minnesota, Tim Walz. He's not quite as bad as Whitmer. But what sparked my thought about Jesse Ventura is remembering him tell the story of when he was elected governor. It was a shocker. The deep state didn't see that coming. They never thought he'd win. He was a third-party candidate. And about a week after becoming governor, he was invited to go down to the basement, the lower level of the state capitol, to talk to the CIA.
1 month after I took office, I was requested to the basement of the Capitol, where I was interrogated by 23 members of the Central Intelligence Agency, and I was the governor.
And I guess it just begs the question, is there a hidden power? Is there a deep state shadow government element behind some of these governors acting so tyrannically? Because a friend, a contributor to SGT Report, just wrote an article the other day titled, "Do Oaths Matter?" Well, yeah, oaths matter. What could compel these governors to act like such tyrants when the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is so clear and such a wonderful guide?
Yeah, you wonder where they're getting their orders from. You wonder sometimes who's really in control. I have heard about the CIA thing. I had not seen it personally. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever heard of that was when Jesse said that. But now a friend of mine did some checking into it, and sure enough, there's a CIA agent working for the state of Arizona at the state capitol. I don't know how much of a powerful position he has. I do know that the CIA gets involved in too much, and I do know that George Bush Sr. Was in charge of the CIA at one time, and then he became president. I also know that Maxine Waters, the right-wing conspiratorial theorist that she is, actually accused the CIA of drug dealing in her community in the Southern California area. I don't know if she's in Los Angeles or not, but I know it was the Southern California area. She accused the CIA of being drug dealers. Wow. And she never got called a right-wing nut or extremist or anything, or racist, which most people get called if you bring up conspiracy theories. But it would not surprise me. But this is the thing. People tell me all the time, do you know, Sheriff Mack, you're wrong. You can't ask people to support the Constitution because it doesn't exist anymore. It was killed at the Civil War, and the freedom and liberty were killed then, or it was killed in 1913 when they formed the Federal Reserve, or the War Powers Act. It was killed then. And that, oh, well, it was killed when America became a corporation. No, none of those things are true. Some of those things may have happened, and it may have been really serious, but when the North won the Civil War, they did not give up their state sovereignty. It was not destroyed. I could see how the South would say some of that, but I don't care what state you're from and where you live right now. The Constitution of America is still there. It's in the archives in the Library of Congress. It's still supposed to be the supreme law of the land. And if you took an oath to it, there is nothing else that matters. You must keep that oath. You must enforce the principles of liberty that this country was founded upon. Period. End of story. Don't tell me anything about us being a bankrupt country, or that we're controlled by the Federal Reserve, or that the Federal Reserve runs our country, or that the IRS runs our country. All of those are usurpations and scandalous, and I can stop it all in my county. And I can make my county a constitutional county, along with the people I work for, and along with a few other public officials, I hope. But the sheriffs in this country don't understand, and this is what we're trying to get them to understand, and a lot of people don't understand this. The sheriffs of the country, in this country, do not need to ask permission from anyone else to restore liberty in your county. And to tell federal agents, you're not allowed here, you're not going to abuse any of my citizens in here, and the first one on the list would, of course, be the IRS. Now, when I was sheriff, I had a real problem with the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, because they would not allow us to fix a bridge that got washed out in a rainstorm. And so I wasn't in charge of that. I don't have anything to do with maintenance of bridges. Okay. However, I got really involved when the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to fix the bridge anyway, because 10 months later, the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA had done nothing. And the people that lived out in that area were really mad, and they were mad at the county commissioners, Board of Supervisors. And so they voted finally unanimously to open the bridge. Then the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers come in and say, we're going to arrest all of you. We're arresting all the maintenance people at the bridge site. We're arresting you for passing this ordinance. And now I got involved. And so I called the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA heads in, and I said, if you try to arrest anybody in my county, I will arrest you. And if you want to see I'm crazy, go around and talk to people, because I'm already suing the federal government. I don't know if you guys know that, but I'm already crazy enough to sue the Clintons. I'm equally up to the challenge to take care of you guys. I said, I get along with everybody. I'm very diplomatic. I'm a nice guy. Let's go golfing, whatever you want. But I said, you're not arresting anybody in my county. You have no law enforcement authority here, and I will not allow it. Guess what happened, Sean? I did not go to jail. Nobody else went to jail. We didn't pay a dime in fines. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that part. They were going to charge us $50,000 a day for every day we're in violation. We didn't pay a dime. The Army Corps of Engineers and EPA left. We fixed the bridge. Everybody went home. Everybody's happy. And that's how we fix America. Tell the tyrants and tell the bureaucrats to get the hell out of the way and let us live our lives and enjoy the liberty that we were blessed with in this country. That's it.
Here, here. I love it. I love your passion, and you're setting a great example. You set a great example for us. You set a great example for sheriffs across the country. A shout out to those in Virginia who have also shown us the blueprint for freedom.
Amen. Yep.
If the tyrants in government in Virginia want to try to ban the Second Amendment or come after our firearms, you just make the counties and cities gun sanctuary cities. That's it. We do not need to enforce tyranny on ourselves. See, this is the great trick that they play. And they have these non-governmental agencies and non-elected people like Bill Gates telling us, we really need to keep this thing shut down for 18 months until we develop a vaccine that we're going to roll out for the entire world to take. I can't think of anything more Orwellian or anti-freedom and anti-human than that. And Dr. Fauci happens to have a huge conflict of interest because in the past or currently, he was on the leadership council of the Gates Foundation and stands to earn billions from a global vaccine. So this is what we're up against. And we have to inform the sheriffs and police officers listening. Do not enforce the tyranny of these globalists on us, we the people, because you're enforcing the tyranny on yourself and your families.
Right. Well, Fauci has a lot more in his background that's worse than that, but be that as it may, that's enough of one right there to question him all the way. But there's been several doctors that have come out and completely denounced him and said what he's doing, and others, that the shutdown is completely unnecessary, in fact, counterproductive to what we're trying to do to prevent disease. So Dr. Budar and Dr. Shiva are two of them. Also, Dr. Stephen Smith, who runs his own clinic in New York, said he's had tremendous success, 100% success on 72 patients that he's treated with hydroxychloroquine. So, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's pretty good for this sheriff. Regardless of what is successful medically, I still keep my freedoms. And there might be a time where we the people decide that we need to take some specific measures and extraordinary measures. There might be that time, but it can never be forced by government. Never forced by government. And so, yeah, we really need to focus on the liberty issues here and get back to work.
Yeah. Okay, because here's the cautionary tale for anybody listening, and that includes, please, I hope a lot of law enforcement hears this interview. The cautionary tale I want to share with folks is that this is going to get worse before it gets better. And what I'm talking about is not the pandemic. I'm talking about the economic destruction that we're currently seeing. Yeah. Sheriff, I've been saying for a long time that we the people were winning. We saw the yellow vests in France. Of course, we got Brexit in the UK. We had the Hong Kong protests. We had the election of Donald Trump. And so the elite, the people that control this world in the economic centers of power, played their pandemic card. Okay, this is what I've been saying. And now, even if we get this economy back open, we see them crashing the oil market. We see them playing every devious card they have in their deck. And so what I want to warn folks in law enforcement is that if we don't get this thing back open, and if we don't stand by the Bill of Rights in the Constitution and use those things as our guides, these people may make life extremely hard on all of us by design in order to pressure us to cave in to their globalist agenda. And so what I've been saying, Sheriff, and I'm very concerned about it, is if they destroy oil and energy by design, it's game over for civilization if we're not all on the same page here. We have to stick together against what's coming because these people have a lot of cards in their deck, and we can see them playing a lot of those cards right now.
Amen. And I really appreciate how you put that. Very powerful, and I totally agree with you. Everything you said, I totally agree with you. And one other thing, when you're talking about medical tyranny, and this is what I thought you alluded to a little bit earlier, and I wanted to specifically address it for sheriffs and peace officers. What if that vaccine is required by law for every person? And I'm telling you right now, I have never taken a flu vaccine, and I'll be damned if I'm going to take this one. I'm not going to take it. I will continue to be careful, as I said, but I'm not taking it. Somebody would, I mean, 99% I'm not. Somebody would have to really show me that this was the miracle cure and it's not killing people, and it's all done, and my son's a nurse and he and his family all take it or whatever, regardless of the efficacy of a vaccine. We cannot be put in the position where we're tying people up, arresting them, throwing them down to the ground, going into their homes and making sure that medical people vaccinate everybody. If we have door-to-door vaccinations, or we require everybody to line up and get on the train, get on a vaccine, it's not going to happen with a lot of sheriffs, I hope. It would never have happened with this sheriff. If you want the vaccine, that's your choice. That's your choice. And I would never allow that to someone to be forced, tied up, handcuffed, and vaccinated. That's not America. That's not self-government. That's not liberty. That's not my choice.
No. We are not a free people if they can roll out a mandatory vaccine. And a shout out to Jeff Berwick, who came up with this, or at least shared it in a video. I'm not sure who decoded this. I think it's brilliant. COVID-19. Now, of course, you'll remember that Bill Gates is pushing for a vaccine. He wants to make it global. He's been talking about needing certificates to travel in the future, et cetera, et cetera. COVID, you ready for this? COVID, COVID, Certificate of Vaccination ID, COVID. So this is what we're up against, Sheriff, and I really do appreciate your voice and your honor.
Well, thanks. And do we have time for one quick other anecdote?
Absolutely.
We have a sheriff right now, Sheriff Nichols in Franklin County, Maine. And he told his governor, I will not make my county a police state. We will not act like Nazis. We will follow the Constitution. And that's what they're doing there. Okay? He's standing for liberty. We have another sheriff in, I think it was Hillsborough County or Manatee, one of those two, in Florida. Sheriff Chronister, he arrested a minister, a pastor, for having church a couple of weeks ago. This pastor was very careful. Rodney Howard Brown, he took all sorts of extreme measures, but he said the gospel is an essential and spirituality is an essential, and we will continue with this. I also have a friend, Pastor Ernie Sanders in Ohio, that's had church every Sunday since the supposed pandemic started. He does it every Sunday. He never missed once, except they had a flood there one day and he didn't have it then. But other than that, these people are doing what they choose and practicing their rights. So I want to ask everybody listening, everybody in America, which sheriff do you want? Do you want the sheriff who stands for your individual liberty and doesn't want to make his county a police state? Or do you stand for the guy who violates the First Amendment, violates the right to peaceably assemble, violates freedom of religion, and arrests a pastor in America? So which one do you want in your county? I'm telling you, it's your choice. And that's why I'm asking you to get involved with this peaceful and effective solution that we have at cspoa.org.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Sheriff Richard Mack, guys, has been our guest. He's the founder of the CSPOA. I will leave a link below. Please, everyone listening, I have a very, very supportive audience. I hear that all the time from book authors, Sheriff. So I hope you see a surge in people signing up and a surge in donations, because this is the fight. We are in the fight today. We've been in the fight for the survival of this republic for decades, for hundreds of years. We have to stand with our founding fathers on this one. We have to stand together. We have to stand for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's just that simple.
Amen. Thanks so much.